Okay, I don't know what just happened, but I'm a little late by a lot. Um so anyway, yeah, it can be difficult. And that is just that's just how it is, really. Um there's no way around it. Well, bam. Okay. So, I don't know. I guess we'll let this one go because it's a short one. Gonna fill up the game board again. Yeah, so basically, I need some kind of distraction because if I don't have one, this episode is going to come to fruition, and that is a bad thing. Um, so, I have a personality disorder, which means how I perceive and experience the world, and how other people perceive and experience the world is really not the same. And theoretically, neither is wrong, right? Each is a different. It's coming from. It's just a different perspective. Um, but the mismatch between the different perspectives can absolutely cause problems. So it's something that needs to be navigated carefully. And unfortunately, carefully for me usually means just not saying anything. Because I kind of have no chill when you snap the trigger. Woo! We made it to level 17, biatch. And so it kind of comes down to picking your battles. Is expressing this thought, idea, feeling worth the outcome? And I guess you could say most of the time, especially if it's gonna bring up volatility, it's not, right? Because that kind of only has one endpoint, right? You're not going to. You're not going to react in a volatile manner and get a good reaction, which is not at all strange. That makes sense. If somebody kind of feels like you're coming at them, they're probably going to go into defensive mode, and they're going to feel perfectly justified in doing that. And there's nothing to say that that's not reasonable. Now, on the receiving end of that, you may disagree with whether that's reasonable or not, right? But again, this is a matter of perspective. To them, it's going to seem reasonable, whether it seems reasonable to you or not. So it gets sticky. Is basically what ends up happening. And so basically, I just choose to let things go a lot. Now, that is a difficult situation to be in for me because it basically makes it feel like I'm constantly just looking the other way or letting things go. And that is tricky in that if that's always what's happening, like across the board, then what ends up happening is it's going to keep happening because whatever issue is being brought up is not being addressed. Now, like I said, I have no fucking chill. So, because this is a hot button for me, I'm not going to say it nicely. Because I'm not really capable of expressing something that is a sensitive subject without losing my shit. In part because if I just say, hey, that's not cool, that bothers me, that usually doesn't get really heard and received. So the method by which the message is communicated usually ends up being a lot more than, hey, this wasn't cool, this bothered me. It's gonna be me like losing my shit. Um, and so again, it becomes a matter of, well, is the result or the likely result worth it? And honestly, most of the time, it's probably not. So, I base it like it puts me in like not a great situation because it kind of basically feels like I'm constantly having to turn the other cheek for people. But right now, I absolutely cannot express this feeling without being a see you next Tuesday. Like, and I know this, and so the best I can do is just be quiet. Um, Unfortunately, I kind of feel that way about a lot of things, and that is exhausting. Which is why when I'm like in a calm situation with someone and like something gets brought up that, oh, this is like this, and that's why I usually will chime in and say, and that's what this part of my life feels like all the time. Um, Mostly because at that point, it's not an accusation. It's not saying you're doing this to me right now. It's a here's an example of how that plays out and where. Um, and it's insight like into where I am with something and how I feel without it bringing up a defensive posture from somebody. Now, um, unfortunately, this whole situation, the specifics have come up a few times, and that would be the other thing. Sometimes something comes up once, and it's like, well, this is not going to keep happening, so we don't need to worry about it. Because it's a fluke or whatever. And then sometimes that is not what happens. That is like becomes like an established way of interacting, and then it is very Houston. We have a problem. So we're kind of getting there right now, and it sucks because there's not going to be any nice way to address this, and it's honestly why I've been kind of avoiding it. Because it's also, and unfortunately, when you do that, it then compounds things, right? Because you're like, well, this is why this is a problem because this keeps happening. And then, of course, the response is, well, why didn't you say anything? And, like, the honest answer is, like, because if I did, we wouldn't be fucking talking right now. That's why. Because I have no chill about this. And I'm not going to negotiate about this. And to think that I am or that it's reasonable for me to, I see as not at all reasonable. Now, again, that becomes like a matter of perspective. Like somebody else may say, well, it's completely reasonable for me to expect this. And I'm like, well, I don't fucking agree. And so, again, it gets sticky. And then it's just plain difficult to deal with. So, I don't know how we're going to address this situation. Because I don't think there is a clear answer of how to do so that is not gonna like possibly rend organs. Yay! This is not the kind of adulting that I want to do today. I gotta tell you. It really isn't. Go me for not initially flying off the handle though. So that's cool. Yeah. This is like the second time something like this has happened where I have had an episode triggered And like, I have been aggressively folding in on myself to stop myself from like, I've had to try really hard to retract the claws. Unfortunately, retracting the claws is kind of like impossible, so it just means digging the claws into my own leg, figuratively speaking, which super sucks. But yeah, right now, unfortunately, that kind of feels like the best I can do. Which, let me just put it out there, not ideal. But let me also say that, hey, while we should strive to get better coping mechanisms and ways of dealing with things, don't don't hate yourself for what's in your toolbox, right? Like a lot of times when people have less than ideal ways of dealing with things, it's because that's what they had access to. That's what made sense, that's what they were able to do. And so we shouldn't give people shit over, having not great coping mechanisms, because sometimes you don't have the luxury, right, of having a good one, and it really can be a luxury. So it's important to like acknowledge that that is a thing. That sometimes this is the best you've got. Now, obviously, again, we wanna try and have good, constructive, helpful coping coping mechanisms, not terrible, destructive ones. But don't die mad about it if the best you can do is you know? Just make it a point to try and do more than Yeah? That sounds good. Um, I mean, I think that sounds reasonable. And I feel like that's doable. And that's the other thing. Your solutions have got to be doable. And like, it's grand and fantastic to like be able to do things that are constructive and healthy and like, good for everybody involved. But sometimes that's just not accessible. And we have to be real here. So, yeah. And it's a fine line, like acknowledging where you are and acknowledging that it's not a great place, and acknowledging that it's not fucking ideal, while still having to occupy that space. That's rough. That's rough. Oh, bad dog jokes. But you can do it all night long. Don't mind Adelaide. So, right now, I am choosing to hang out here with y'all. So, I don't have words with someone of a final nature. Because if nothing else, I absolutely should not conduct a conversation when I'm like ready to rend flesh from organs. Yeah? Probably not. Probably what one might call a bad time. That said, I still there's never seems to be a good time to have this conversation. Just because this it's kind of like a breakup. Like, this is not what this is, right? But like, there's no nice way to break up with someone, right? Like, chances are you're gonna hurt the other person's feelings because you were ready to call it quits and they weren't. They didn't see it coming, so they're like shocked by this development. Them thinking everything was fine, and then like the slap in the face with finding out that it's not fine. And more than likely, by the time you decide, okay, I'm done, that means it's not been fine for a while and they haven't had any idea. And you gotta understand that that can be like debilitatingly bad for people. Because how many times has that happened before? Like, look, you don't need to take on what's happened before you met someone. Um, it's such a way that you walk on eggshells and like have to think, 10, 20, 30 steps ahead about it. But you do need to understand that people are the summation of all that's happened to them. Yeah? And it's going to show. And one of the ways it's going to show is that you're going to have to deal with the fallout and the result of certain things having happened. Like, that's just reality. And if you don't want to have to deal with someone's baggage claim, then you probably should maybe not be around them. Which sounds really harsh, but like, think about the harm that gets done. Yeah. When you participate in re-traumatizing somebody. And consider, the certain actions were taken that could have been avoided. And look, I'm not telling you to like not be friends with people or, just understand what you're getting into and understand the responsibility as a human that comes with, just dealing with other humans. You're not going to get it right. You're not going to get it perfect all the time. You're going to, frankly, fuck it up a lot, right? And there's going to be consequences of that. But you got to accept that that's how that is, right? There are consequences. There are consequences to everything. So, yeah, stuff and things. Now that we went all heavy, that was fun, right? It was glorious. So this is kind of like, I guess, when people get mad or upset and they'll start cleaning. This is kind of what this is for me. Like, I'm fustimated and angry and in a space where there's like no way for me to have some chill. So I'm just gonna like work off some steam by doing something that doesn't require a lot of thought or consideration, but kind of feels like I'm doing something, even if it's not like real, right? Like, I am doing this, I am leveling up, I am gaining experience points, yeah. But if I don't do this, that's fine too, right? Like, not really, nothing terrible is gonna, is really happening when I choose not to game. Yeah. Per se. Like, obviously, we just talked about, like, it's a way to, like, release some emotions. And the other thing is, like, on the troubled human side, know your limitations. Know what you can deal with and what you can't. Know what you need to steer clear of. And then, ideally, you communicate, hey, this is not okay. This bothers me. You draw a line. You have a boundary. And then, you don't have to worry about, like, constantly being trod upon because the idea has been expressed and acknowledged and dealt with. So, yay. Now, again, sometimes it's just not that easy, right? Because, like, it's not. So there's that. Whoa. Sometimes the best you can do is the best you can do. Bam. So, Right now, I think, and like, we gotta take the best with like a level of understanding that the best might not be that great, but it's not the worst. And that's kind of the point. Like, this is the best option. You know, let's say do the test, you gotta choose the best answer, which doesn't mean that there's only one right answer. There could totally be more than one right answer, but like one of those answers is better than the other. It's kind of like that. I always kind of hated that though, like for real. Because I was like, who's making the decision about which one is best? Who is making this decision? Because that also is like a perspective thing. Like sometimes this right here seems the best thing. Like I could say the best thing right now, I could like confront this person and say, hey, look, this is not cool. And this is why this is happening. This is where I am at with this. Or the best thing could be for me to just leave it alone and decide not to care about it. Or another option, sometimes there are 3 options. I could let it alone for now, and then when I can speak on the matter and not be ready to bury an axe between somebody's eyes, I can, then address the issue and say, look, this is a no for me because of this. Now, what I will say is one of the reasons why I've not tried really hard to deal with this specific situation is because I just, in and of myself, can't think of an answer. Like, I don't have it. Like, if asked, well, what do you think I should do, or what would you do? I have no answer. Which becomes a problem. Like, that's something that you learn in conflict resolution. Trying to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, where you'll say, okay, well, I see this problem, and this is the thing, and then you get asked, okay, well, what do you think we should do about it? Now, it's super easy to see a problem. It's another matter entirely. Like another whole ass matter to then do something about it. Because that usually involves a degree of like finesse that isn't necessarily had at the point, which can just be really annoying. Because then, well, damn. I know this is a problem. Right? I know this needs to be dealt with, but I have no chill. And so me dealing with it would result in like volcanic eruptions. And so that's not really an option. Right? And that's kind of where I'm at right now. My reactions, because of how I perceive things, definitely don't seem to match what would be considered, I guess, acceptable, like a societally acceptable reaction to something. But it makes total sense to me. And that's a sticky wicket right there. And I guess maybe that might be like the $1 million question. How do you deal with explaining something wherein, like both people have valid points, but both people also had issues? Yeah? I don't know. What really sucks is I have to get up super early on Wednesday to go to another job interview. And I gotta tell you, I kind of don't want to go because it's 7 a.m. And I'm just not. I'm not looking forward to having to be awake. And right, it's at 7 a.m. That means I have to be there at 7 a.m., which means I absolutely have to be like out the door, gone, and on my way, right, well before that. And that just sounds like, right? Doesn't sound like fun at all. Sounds like a whole bunch of no thanks, to be honest with you. Basket full of no thanks. Unfortunately, whoa. That's not an option either. So, grin and bear it. It's the best we can do. Alright, so... one of the things that I find, and maybe you find this helpful, if I have any kind of contact with the person, like when it's too early to have contact with them because of how I'm gonna react, and they're usually gonna be like, what the hell? I will a lot of times temporarily like disable any communication I can have with them, like however I can, on purpose, so that I can put them out of sight, out of mind while I like breathe through the like rage. It sounds so extreme, but like given how volatile my temper is, rage is in fact kind of a wholly accurate word for where I'm at with it. Which is part of why I have no ability to like talk about this while I feel like this. Because I'm just gonna lose it. Now, go me for like seeing that now instead of acting on it. And the shitty part is it always feels like the right thing to do. Right? To like be honest. My honesty though is not well tempered. And so we're just gonna like we're gonna make some improvements to this building, and that's not how it gets said. It's just a fucking wrecking ball going through the wall like without any kind of preamble, and it's like, what? It's kind of like that. Sounds like a pretty good. It's a pretty good analogy. Now I've got it's like Miley Cyrus trying to sing in my ear. You had to know that was gonna come. You had to. Oh yeah, we had 25, we went down one, and we went back up to 25, so I just want to say, hey, thanks, follower human, whether you are a return or a new. It's awesome having you here. And if it's Kita, hi Kita. Having a moment. Yeah, I really, because my wrist hurt so bad over the weekend, I'm trying to take it easy with my hand and wrist so I don't set myself back and make it impossible for me to like return to knitting when I want to. Right? Like, if I push before I'm ready, there's a really good chance that I'm gonna make it so that I can't, like, I'm gonna have to stop. And it's gonna get, sticky in a way that I, like, really don't want it to be. So we're just gonna carefully with the plates with this. I have no idea what that reference is from. Like, no idea. I know it exists, though. How long have we been streaming? Ugh, I don't know if I'm gonna make it another half an hour. I'm actually getting really tired. And, so the other reason I'm having trouble with this is today was really emotionally draining. And so my ability to keep it together and not fly off the handle is like already strained. I kind of did earlier, to be honest with you. I had somebody give me shit about a job I was doing. And sarcastic as all get out. Well, they're like looking over my shoulder because I can't possibly do my job correctly, right? I was like, can I help you? I gotta tell you, I don't think they appreciated me saying that. But if you're doing some bullshit, I will absolutely call you out on it. That's basically what I did. They did not respond well to that. As expected. Like, I get it. You're mad that I told you you were being an asshole. Did not like this. Well, too flippin' bad. You don't like those consequences? Maybe you shouldn't engage in those activities. Yeah? I mean, that sounds like a fair point. Oh yeah, there's no way I'm gonna make it. I'm struggling to keep my eyes open right now, like, to be perfectly honest with y'all. Mm-hmm. Alright, I don't think I can do anymore. So, to my lurky Lou, thanks for stopping by. If it's not who I think it is, hi, hello, how do you do? Lurkers are always welcome, it's totally fun. If you feel up to it and you feel brave enough, say hi. If you don't, it's all good. I'm calling it quits partially because I can't even anymore. Like, I had to deal with a customer just really being kind of awful. And my sarcasm came out. I was like, can I help you? And they were like, oh, I want to just watch this get done. And I'm just thinking, like, severe eye roll inwardly. Like, whatever. And then, I was like, you know what? We're going to push back on this. I'm like, by the way, this is happening. And then the person wanted to argue with me, like, say, no, that's not happening. And I'm like, it is, in fact, what's happening. Which also, like, low-key irritates me. Like, don't talk to me like I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't do it. Especially when you don't know what you're talking about, right? That's fair. That's fair. But all that happened. On top of it being super hot today, me having my first of 2 tests that I had to take, and that was stressing me out because of how the last one went, because of what this means if I didn't pass it, and all this other stuff. And like, so that's now lifted from my shoulders. But like, because all that stuff happened, I'm like drained. I hate that that's a thing. I hate that I ran out of spoons. So, anyway, I'm gonna scoot. We're gonna do this first. I'm gonna just like scoot out of here before. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, and good night, y'all.